Welcome and welcome back to everyone joining us on Rooted to Thrive, Conversations to Elevate Our Humanity podcast. It's your friend, it's your sister, Rochelle Peterson-Ansari, aka Professor P. Today, we have Deja Alvarez, Deputy Director of TPAC, which is an organization that focuses on the most marginalized among us, mainly Black, Brown, immigrant, LGBTQIA+, the underinsured or uninsured. And they support people with medical, mental health, and legal services. This is what you need to know about Deja, just to get started. Deja is the first trans woman to run for office in Pennsylvania, in the state of Pennsylvania, and is now running a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. Thank you, Deja. Um, and Deja and I, we actually met through a mutual friend in 2017. Mutual friend was running transgender training institute, or the transgender training institute's train the trainer. Yes, that I believe we both were participating in. But I remember Deja like being, I'll just say, larger than life for me. Yeah, like you left an impression. I can't, I don't
Thank
know
you.
what else to say. You left an impression as a human being that I wanted to stay connected to, and I have. When I thought about, this season for the podcast, I was like, how do I get back to Deja? And reached out to our friend who reconnected us. So I appreciate you so much for agreeing to have this conversation with me today. How you doing, Deja?
No, I'm good. In spite of, I am good.
Mm, yeah, that's good stuff. Well, before we get started in our conversation about centering the lived experience in leadership and care, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, as you already stated, I'm a very proud and loud Latina trans woman, community leader, and an advocate for justice, dignity, and love. Um, I've spent my life working alongside the most marginalized communities, others like myself. And I say alongside with because you can't be a part of other movements if you're trying to lead the movement and you're not an actual representative of that particular movement. So I think working
Mm,
alongside of people is very important for me. And
yes.
this isn't just about my profession. This didn't start as a profession. This started as a someone had to be a voice. Someone had to speak up, and so how it came about.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got started in this work?
Oh, well, it started
Yeah.
as a trans woman that I used to do survival sex work. A lot of times when you're in survival sex work, you're also doing drugs because you're trying to cope with everything. But when I say survival sex work, I say that it means that back then we lived in a society that saw trans people as we only had the right to exist at night in very certain places, kind of behind the scenes. And so, we were left to utilize the only thing that we had of any worth, and that was our bodies.
Mhm.
And while I was doing that, and in the streets and all of that, a lot of what we experienced was abuse from the police, from the systems, whether that be government systems or hospitals or doctors' offices or any of that. And so after several years of that, I one night was out with some friends. We go and had a couple drinks like the rest of the world does, and the police came around, started harassing us again. And that was the night that I said, you know what? No more. I'm done. And so I got into a little bit of a shouting and cursing match with one of the officers, and that turned into a little bit more than just a cursing and shouting match. I was arrested, and I didn't stay quiet. I went to every press outlet I could find. I was very outspoken. I went to the city offices. I met with, they called a meeting with the mayor's office and the police department. And, even in that meeting, instead of trying to help us, they were trying to scare me out of moving forward and using my voice to finally, start fighting back on all of these injustices towards us. Now, my appearance allowed me to move through places a little bit easier, but black trans women and less passable trans women had it even harder. And so, I decided that day, I'm like, you know what, I've had enough. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to watch my sisters be treated like this, and I'm not going to allow myself to be treated like this anymore. And it kind of jump started from there.
I love that. Yeah. And I mean, I love that, in the face of being harassed, being oppressed, you said this is how I'm going to fight, and not just for me but for other people. I think we find that in a lot of Black and Brown communities, right? And our Latinx communities or Latino community, um, all different variations of Black communities,
Yes.
right, and different ethnic groups, that we almost don't feel like we have permission to not center our community along with
Yes.
us. That feels real for you
Absolutely.
too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And for you to take that route, right? Somebody's got to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, to advocate for us. And I appreciate that you shared that in a meeting that was convened allegedly for everyone to come together, intimidation tactics were being
Yes.
used
Absolutely.
to quiet your voice, not to really create a win-win situation.
No, not at all. They weren't there to solve a problem. They were there to scare me and one of my girlfriends. And what they said was, according to this article, it says this, this, and this. But what's going to happen is we're now going to have to take a look at your finances, how you've been paying your rent, how you've been doing
Mm,
A, B, C, and D. And I just told them, listen, you've known about how we pay our bills for years and you were fine with it as long as we
okay.
stay quiet. And if you
Mm,
brought us here to this meeting thinking that this was going to scare me into being quiet, then we're wasting each other's time.
yes,
And I got up and
yes.
left.
Okay, I know that's right. Deja, where do you, what do you attribute that courage to? Like, were you always like that? Were there examples
Um,
for you?
no, honestly, I wasn't always like that. Um,
Okay.
when I was younger, I was not as outspoken. Especially coming up as a young person and then discovering your gender identity. And then, back then in the beginning of that, internet wasn't even really much of a thing. And so you
Mhm.
didn't know exactly what was going on. So no advice early on in life. I had a rough childhood. I had an extremely abusive father and a mother that, while she was there for us and loved us, was used to those abusive relationships. So that just caused a lot of issues. So I kind of learned to try and stay quiet. I was keep as low key as possible because my father I would get beat for being too feminine. I would get beat for not playing the games that, people are supposed to play, etc. So I learned at a young age to just stay quiet. And I think that I not only myself, but I watched so many of who people that I call my siblings being harassed and treated poorly that I just, in that moment, I found my voice. And once I found my voice, that was it. Once that door opened, there was no closing it. There was no
No
shutting
turning
me
back.
up after.
I know that's right. Well, that's good stuff. Well, we are all thankful for you for that door being open, even though the reasons are heartbreaking, right?
Yes.
Like I would not wish that on anybody, but I do appreciate that you leaned into your purpose.
Well, thank
Yes.
you.
Well, let's get into centering the lived experience in
Mhm.
leadership and care. So you introduced this topic for us. That you wanted to talk about building leadership models that prioritize lived experience
Mhm.
as expertise. Let's get into it.
Yes, let's get into it.
How does one center lived experience in their leadership?
So I think like TPAC is a good example of that. But I think, you see all these places get funding, right, to have these groups and all of this other stuff to have to form some kind of program that's going to help these poor, marginalized souls that can't fend for themselves and they're not really highly educated, they don't have degrees, so without a degree that makes you dumb. And so you have people here without the lived experience that are making the decisions for people that are down here that are trying to figure out how to not only survive, but get to a place of thriving. And if you have people here without the lived experience, then oftentimes the people here never get the opportunity to thrive. We see that
Mhm,
with our Senate, with our Congress. We see it with, all kinds of some of the larger organizations. It's somebody that has a fancy degree and they've applied for some funding and they get some funding. And so now they're going to come in and save us. And so instead of showing us the way, instead of showing us how to do it, they just, they kind of coddle us. Oh,
mhm,
look what we're doing. We're providing this space for you. Isn't that wonderful? We're providing
mhm,
pizza and we're providing a few, SEPTA coins and, maybe a $50 gift card for participating. And bam, now we're done. Now we've made our quota, we've made our money, and y'all are left to fend for yourselves again.
And what you're describing is the missionary model
Yes.
of
Yes.
support, right? So people got it honestly, right? Like they were taught that, they were shown that as their example. A lot of religious organizations did that, right? Before there was something called nonprofits, or community organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the community organization was the community in the
Yes.
past. But many of us did learn that missionary model. Yeah. And you described what people would typically do. I want to hear more about, how they shift that, right? Like how they shift that, especially because they learned something different. We're gonna have a little compassion for them today.
Okay. Works for me.
Okay, just a little, yeah. So, how can they unlearn and what they've learned and relearn something new?
Well, I think honestly, it can start by walking into these spaces open to
Mm,
learning, not walking
yes.
into this space thinking that I went to school for 4, 6, or 8 years. And so I'm walking in knowing everything and I'm going in here to teach these people.
Mhm,
You can't teach a person with lived experience about their life. You have to go in prepared to listen. If you're not prepared to listen, then you're not doing it for the right reasons because
mhm,
the goal should be to uplift these communities. We talk a lot about meet them where they're at. Absolutely meet them where they're at. But then help them go further, help them through another door. For me, what I did is every single place that I was able to get into because maybe I speak a little bit better, than the next, person that was in my shoes. Maybe I've learned to control my emotions a little bit better for whatever reason than the next person. But a lot of times what happened was every time one of those doors opened, when somebody said, oh, yeah, oh, we want Deja in here. But then they tried to close the door behind me and they didn't
Mm-hmm.
want the rest of us in there. And I think that that's how we start, is that these people that have access to the funding, people that have access to the resources, have to be prepared to not just share the resources, but share how we then become the resources.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I like that. So you're speaking to the people who get in the door, right? So
Yes,
you might not be a funder, but you are, or the benefactor, but you are a supporter, ally, leader that is trying to get support for others, and particularly the most marginalized among us who don't have access.
yes,
When you get there, what I hear you saying is when you get the access, be prepared to share the resources and be a resource.
yes, absolutely.
Yes. So elaborate a little bit more on being the resource. What does that look
So,
like?
it's funny. I was going to wear this sweatshirt today that my husband made for me. I did I was on a panel discussion like a month or so ago. And during the Q&A, somebody else that's in the community stood up and was like, well, everybody up there has these, good jobs and this and that and the other. And um, then they looked at me and they were like, where you been? I missed you. Where are you at? And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. So, thinking about it afterwards, I made a social media post addressing it, saying, and I posted a picture of this, one of the programs that we're doing here, one of the legal programs that we're doing here is being put into a couple of medical journals and other journals. So I took a screenshot of the acceptance into these different journals where it had Deja Alvarez listed as one of the authors. And I posted that on my social media and I said, I'm the work, I'm the resource. And I think that that's what we're talking about. People that have the lived experience, that have had to learn from the ground up how to fight, how to survive, and now they're in a different mode. We make sure that other people have that same access. We don't get into a space and then think, oh, I made it, I'm good, let me stay quiet so that I don't ruffle any feathers and let the rest of the community fend for themselves because now I've hit this peak or position or whatever it's considered. No, you continue opening them doors for others to come through. I tell people all the time, they're like, Deja, well, you don't have the same experience because you have this position. And I'm like, you don't know where I came from, do you? You don't know that I came from having to turn tricks in order to survive. You don't know that I came from, being raped at gunpoint and knife point, including by police officers. So you don't know all of these stories that led me to where I'm at today. And I didn't just survive, I'm now thriving. We have to make sure that people see that and that they know it's okay for them to thrive because society has taught us it is not okay for us to thrive. We have to stay in constant survival mode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So survival mode is actually a tool of a society that is trying to keep you oppressed. I need people to hear that.
Yes.
We need to repeat that for the people in the back of the room, person that is ear hustling, for the person who's actually
Yeah.
listening to this podcast, that you staying in survival mode continues to keep you oppressed.
Yeah.
And it's by design.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's absolutely by design. We may have started out as trying to, be a country of no kings, but it didn't change. It was still the people in the castle throwing out just enough wheat or whatever the crop was that the farmers and the people living in the little town didn't starve, but it kept them hungry enough to come back to the castle walls every day so that those crumbs could be thrown out to them again.
Yes,
And
it
that is
is.
survival mode. And as long as we are in
Mhm.
survival mode, then we are never going to storm those castle walls.
Come on now. And getting out of survival mode is something that some of us can do
Yes.
when we look right, when we look inside and commit to our own transformation despite it all. Yes,
Yeah.
when we commit to our wellness, excuse me, when we commit to our health, our mental health, our emotional health, we can help to get ourselves out of that survival mode because you need to be relaxed enough, right?
Yes.
To actually think clearly, to innovate. And you were given everything that you needed at birth. It's things in this world, on this earth that took
Yes.
some of that away, but you have it in you. Yes? Thank you for saying that. Now, I need to just circle back for 1 minute because I want, for those who don't know you, not to miss the fact that when you were talking about your name being at an author in a medical journal, I need people to know that I don't see any PhD, MD, DO degrees on Deja's name. Deja is living proof of being the resource, of being or leaning in to Deja's lived experience to bring expertise to the table. And that is possible for all of us. Some people have the power right now to open those doors, but within ourselves, we have to know that they can be opened. Yes, I've talked to a lot of people, I'm coaching and coaching for the most part instead of the other way around where I was doing more training before. And I talked to so many people who limit themselves, right? Like they've internalized a limiting belief about what is possible for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Absolutely.
so, yeah. And so we're talking to them, to you as well, that you have something you have to not see, let's just say in a job description. You don't look at it and say, hey, it's not for me because I don't have X, Y, and Z. Deja, in my career, I've gotten 2 jobs where I did not have one of the requirements that they said was mandatory. Because when they met me, well, first of all, something made them bring me in, right? And then secondly, when they saw me, they were like, how could we not?
Mm-hmm.
How, how could we not?
I can relate
Right?
to that.
Yes. And so many of us have that. Once we believe it, then will some doors open for you. Like, despite what the other people think, even if some people still have that missionary perspective, right?
Yes.
Of
Yes.
helping people. Sometimes, like literally, things that you might consider miraculous can happen when you get that deep down in you
Yeah.
as an individual. That's why I was asking you, like, how you got that way, because
Yeah.
that's been literally and figuratively beaten out of a whole lot of people.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think we
Okay.
also have to be very careful that just because we may have reached a place where society in general or others, they would consider, oh, you've now reached success. You've made it. So no, I haven't made it. I haven't made it because I'm still watching this society, this country, these religions, these people oppress people over and over and over again. And how have we made it when every election cycle there are groups of people whose very existence is up for debate? That's not making it.
That's right. That's not making it. But listen, we started talking a little bit about the structural issues, right? And I want to dig a little deeper into that as well. So, what's one structure or policy shift you've seen that actually might redistribute power rather than just celebrate representation?
One structural shift that celebrates power. Um,
Or redistributes power?
yeah, yeah, I'm
Maybe
sorry, I
something
said
you've
that
done?
wrong.
No, that's okay.
Redistributes power.
Rather than saying,
So,
oh, well, let's have representation.
yeah, well, that's what a lot of places still do. But structural shifts, that's a funny word because it's a funny, because it can mean different things. Because
Okay.
structural can be part of government systems, it can be part of hospitals, it can be, part of so many different things. It can be part of nonprofit
Yeah.
organizations. It can be all of this. And I think for me, one of the shifts that we've seen is people are starting to pay a little more attention to what leadership looks like. And while sometimes it can still come across as a little tokenizing, I used to have people tell me all the time, like, oh, you realize you're just being tokenized. No, sweetie, I'm going in here fully aware of what they think, but I'm coming in here with my own agenda, and they're just not prepared for that yet.
Preach. Okay.
So, one of the structural changes that I think that I see is, in management levels, whether it's in the Philadelphia Police Department. We have the first ever woman who's a Black woman as mayor here in the city of Philadelphia.
Yes.
Whether
Yes,
you
we
agree with
do.
all of her policies or not, you cannot
Mhm.
deny the difference that that makes, because how many Black women are now looking and seeing, damn, this woman achieved becoming mayor of the fifth largest city in the country.
Yes.
And
And can I,
yeah, please.
I just wanted to say something about that, just in terms of considering structural and policy shift. I'm not sure if you would know, right? So I'm in the vendor system for the city and connected to it, right? So I'm in the vendor system for the school district, but I'm connected to others that are in the city's procurement
Mm-hmm.
system. Upon the mayor, right, this first Black woman that we have, upon her taking office, I think within a few months, I felt a shift just in what they were asking, like the support they were trying to get to help them shift. There were RFPs to help with leadership development for women
Yes.
specifically, team building in newly formed departments, right, where they were trying to break down silos. And they centered the human beings, like, let's get these people to know each other. Yes, I wasn't always in that system, wasn't always adjacent to it and know what went on before, but that felt like something new. Yes,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's a
That's a
that's
structural
a
shift.
structural shift. Yes, exactly.
Yes, absolutely. In the
Exactly.
city and the police department and all that, trans
Mhm.
people can now, transition on duty or come in as a trans person now. They can go through the police academy. They can, we worked on the first ever trans man that was going to become a Philadelphia police officer. And I worked very
Okay.
closely with the deputy commissioner and the commissioner and the um, the PPD training and all of them, because they did need to make some changes in how they do things, recognizing that a transgender person is slightly different. They still had to meet all the same physical requirements, still had to pass all the same tests. There was no special accommodations, what people like to think of.
Yeah.
It was just making sure that, it was a system that was now inclusive of people that are of other identities.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with the city. Now there are, When I was in my 20s, I never saw a trans person working for the city or the police department or in the hospitals or, anything. And so now we see more of that. We see trans people that are doctors and they're nurses so there is a structural shift going on at a lot of different levels in a lot of different places.
Yeah,
The
that's
problem now
powerful.
becomes keeping it going in the positive direction.
That's right. Right. You don't want to see with a change of administration in the
Mm-hmm.
city or in the police department, then everything that was built gets torn down.
Right.
Yeah. And what would you recommend for people externally and internally to these organizations for them to do in order to sustain the progress that's been made?
Well, they have to create policies. In the police department, they're called directives. In other places, they're called policies. There also has to be legislation. The city of Philadelphia, we created legislation that protected gender identity and sexual orientation. And once we did that, then we were able to take the next step and then the next step and the next step. So there has to be a change in your policies. You have to put it on paper in policy form or directive form or legislation, whatever it is, whatever system we're talking about. It has to be put into the rules, regulation, and laws that everyone is protected. I worked in the Department of Health for several years, and I can tell you that a lot of people there thought that equality and protection only covered people's skin color. It didn't
Hmm.
cover gender identity. It didn't cover sexual orientation. It didn't cover immigrants. It didn't, all of these other things. It only covered one. But that's what happens when one group feels like they've achieved something. Now that I've got this and I had to fight so hard to get it, I don't want anybody else coming along and taking it from me.
That's a scarcity mindset. And I have to say that that's what I keep hearing over and over and over
Mm-hmm.
again in this whole conversation. That as Americans, because I will say that's in the smog we're breathing in, where we have been conditioned to have that limiting belief that there's not enough for everyone.
Yeah. But that leads back right to the same thing as, they throw just enough crumbs for you not to starve, but still be hungry. So you're afraid that some of those crumbs are now going to go to somebody else. And, like we see this thing right now where the big talking point is, oh no, we got to get rid of the immigrants because they're getting everything. So wait, so let me get this right. So you're getting subsidized housing, you're getting SNAP benefits, you're getting, a very low amount of money per month. And you think by someone else that is different than you, that came from a different geographical location than you did, one is not deserving of these benefits. But two, if they get them, they're going to be taking it from you. So now you're literally fighting over free stuff.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way to
For
put it.
money,
But I remember
right?
seeing people get on microphones in Chicago and other major cities when
Mhm.
the immigrants were coming in on buses and they were being put up at a hotel or something so
That's
that they
right.
weren't in the street. They were only being put up for a brief period of time. But I saw people on the microphone that reflected communities that know what it's like to be marginalized. And they're like, well, no, we don't want them getting our housing. Our housing, wait a minute, that's subsidized. So now so government subsidies belong to you now and not the people. And I think,
Yeah.
we have to have a discussion about that. We have to have the discussion about other marginalized communities wanting to keep other communities marginalized.
Yeah. But again, you know, it's in the air people are breathing because they
Mhm.
are being convinced that it is theirs,
Mm-hmm.
that and someone's taking it away. And when I say convinced, I'm serious. I know I have a family member, this was some years ago, who said to me they were going to a council meeting or city council meeting in another city um, in the state of Pennsylvania, and they were going to go to this meeting to discuss how the immigrants were taking their jobs. And I was like, wait a minute, okay, stop for a second, seriously. And I think about it,
Mm-hmm.
these are people who are in my sphere of influence, who actually help raise me. And I'm like, what's happening right now? One, do you know what jobs we're talking about? Because I bet you not one of them is one that you would take. That's one. Yes. This also was someone who was actually near retirement. So I still didn't understand. I mean, I was like, it boggled my mind. When I tell you, people can easily be convinced that
Oh,
something is
yeah.
theirs. I know the heart and spirit of the people I'm talking about. It was like I was talking to another person, like it's like somebody
Yeah.
I didn't know, because maybe they were in an in crowd now with the city council folks, right? And feeling a
Yeah.
little level of importance, feeling community. And that got thwarted and used, right? For them, I mean, they were coming into a meeting with a position that they didn't actually really understand, right? That came from somewhere. And we're talking about adults, not
Mhm.
10-year-olds. So there are many messages in this. I love it, Deja. See, this is why we need to talk more often. We definitely do.
Yeah.
But before we go, I really want to talk about, I'm going back to leadership. If you really want to talk about something else, please just let me know. But I keep going back to, I'm thinking about systems and leaders in organizations. And I was curious about how, if someone is centering lived experience in their leadership, how does that play out like in hiring and promotion processes?
Oh,
Yeah.
that plays out in one, you have to recognize some of these jobs that you're requiring these degrees that made these folks go into debt for 100, $200,000, and you're only offering them 35, $40,000 for one. But two, does this job, can someone be trained for this position? Or does this job absolutely require this degree? Listen, being a professor, being a doctor, being a pilot, there are several things I could name that absolutely require the degrees, the level of education, the time spent doing it. But there are a lot of jobs that are asking for degrees that actually you could bring somebody on board and train them to do it. And that empowers people. Every job I've gotten was because somebody saw something in me. And even though they knew I didn't have the degree that they would normally ask for this position, they would talk with me, interview with me, and you know what? She's got a good mind. I think she'll be able to learn this. And so we have to open the door to even be able to have the discussion with people, to let them come in and interview. You might really like this person, and you might see that this person actually understands what it is you're trying to do, and you can help them learn to do those things. When I get done with you today, I'm finishing up the budget for this next fiscal year.
Okay.
Listen, that is not something I've been trained for. So trying to do a multi-million dollar budget that I'm going to present to our board of directors
Mhm,
as someone who doesn't have the degree, as someone who
mhm.
has, learned things as I went along, it's scary, but it's also exciting. And if you give some of us the opportunity, we might surprise you. we really might surprise you. Not only that, but then you're bringing people in with the lived experience that can help the other people that work around them to understand what the goal of the program, project, or whatever is. I remember, one of the first offers I had for a job was for 10 hours a week to pass out condoms in the community. And when they found out that I was doing more than that, even though I wasn't doing it on their time, I wasn't asking for more money. They actually called me into the executive director's office to kind of threaten me. Like, whoa, what are you doing? You're only supposed to be handing out condoms. You're not supposed to be in this space talking to these people and in this space talking to these people. And then I had to remind them that you paid me to hand out condoms for 10 hours a week. The rest of this stuff I'm doing on my time as Deja Alvarez, not as the employee of such and such organization.
Yes.
But I feel like being an example of that is good for other people to see that I don't have to stay in this place that the society has tried to tell us we belong in.
Yeah.
We don't have to fit into their box.
That's right. And I also hear you calling in leaders to say, hey, you need to think out of the box, to ask the right questions, to get people who are capable of what you need based on lived experience, not degrees.
Yeah.
Yes.
Listen, if we're still doing surveys about the people's needs, and this is, year 30, 35 that we're doing them, and you're offering a $25 or $50 gift card, what are you really doing? You're not accomplishing anything, because all of those other surveys already told you what the problem is. The problem is you don't have people that understand what the actual problem is to sit there with you and help you solve the problem.
Yes. And that brings me to collective care, right? And what that looks like in an organization. Yeah, that's part of what collective care looks like. Can you elaborate a little more on what collective care looks like in an organization as well?
Ooh. I think collective care is making sure that everyone who works there feels that they are kind of on equal footing, that the same support that is offered to one is offered to the other. Everybody may not need the same support, but it's there. It's making sure that, for me personally, being able to come in and create policies and stuff that allowed for more vacation time than what you would get anywhere else, more personal days, allowed for the space for them to work from home if they're struggling. And that's collective care to me. Collective care is we don't just take care of our clients, we take care of our staff. And we make sure that they're mentally and physically able to continue caring for our clients. And I think that makes a big difference with us as an organization, is that we're not just good to the clients because they, well, maybe not in our case, but in a lot of cases, they're the ones that bring the money in. But you need to care for the people that are caring for them. So if you don't do that, then you have a bunch of people that are just showing up because they need that paycheck. And what help are they actually giving to the people that need it? What kind of attitude are they giving off? What kind of aura, if you want to talk about what kind of spirituality are we talking about that they're, sharing with your clients? How are you actually helping them?
That's powerful. So Deja, my goodness, this has been wonderful. I cannot thank you enough for just a riveting conversation. I feel like I'm returning home, having a conversation with you. And I wanted to just say to our listeners as well, like what you heard today is both a reminder and a challenge. Expertise just doesn't come from books, credentials, titles. It's born from living what others only theorize about.
Yes.
Right? There is somebody who's not qualified because they can't connect to your lived experience. And the people closest to the problem are often the ones holding the most powerful solutions. Yes. When we
Yes.
center lived experience and leadership and care, we do more than diversify a table. We rebuild it with new values, shared power, accountability, and humanity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can I say one more thing really quick? I
Please.
also I also want to point out that also within marginalized communities, when people achieve what once, say those of us that are getting these positions for our lived experience or whatever, that once we reach some sort of success, one, do not forget to keep that door open and bring your siblings, your family, your whoever in the door with you. Two, don't be part of that other group that has to play that crabs in a barrel BS. That is now mad that you've achieved what they perceive as some kind of success. And so now you get attacked and you become a problem and people, started, oh, well, she, this and she that and she that. No, you know, take that and run with it. Say, well, listen, if she could do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. If they can do it, I can do it.
Mhm. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. I just want to make sure you done because I feel like you just getting
I'm good.
started. Look good.
I'm
I'm like,
always just getting started.
yes. Go, Jason. I love that. Deja Alvarez is always just getting started. I love that. Well, listen, can you share with our audience how they can find you, reach you after this episode?
Sure. Just you can look for Deja Alvarez on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. And I'm not hard to find. You'll find me.
All right. Good stuff. Again, Deja Alvarez, thank you so very much. And I want to just thank our listeners for doing the work, for listening, first of all, to the end. I hope you receive some new nuggets, something that you can pass on to other people, and for all of you doing the work to build leadership that reflects the people that it serves. And until next time, keep leading with care, courage, and truth, like my good friend Deja Alvarez. See you next time on Rooted to Thrive.